So welcome to another random walk down Mill Street. Today is December 14th, and we begin the holiday of Hanukkah this coming Sunday night. If you can come to synagogue, it would be great. And you can see our Hanukkah, which we're going to talk about a little later today. But the introduction here is simply we're going to do two parts to this class. The first part is we're going to listen to some recordings of how the Spanish-Portuguese tradition sings the blessings, chants the blessings in the Hanerot Halalu on the evenings of Hanukkah. And then we're going to look at Chanukiot in the Shearith Israel tradition or collection. So here we go. Okay. Just making sure you can see my screen. Share screen is working. Okay, great. Okay. Here we are. We're starting getting right into it. These are the blessings of the lighting the Hanukkah. By the way, it's definitely improper to call the Hanukkah a menorah. The menorah is what was in the temple, had 7 lamps. The lamp we light on Hanukkah has 8, so it's much more accurate to say a Hanukkah. Just a little aside there, freebie. And in the Shearith Israel tradition, the lighting of the Hanukkah is done in the middle of the service, in the evening service, right after the Kaddish Titkabal. So you say the Shema, you say the Amidah, the Kaddish Titkabal is said, and then we light the Chanukiah. We sing Hanerot Halalu. We sing the psalm Mizmor Shir Chanukat Habayit Lid David, which we'll listen to a little later. And then the mourner's Kaddish, Aleinu, and our beat is over. That is the way it's done. So let's listen to it. And it's the same blessing melody that we hear. Blessings are made in the Spanish-Portuguese tradition. You'll recognize it from the shofar, you'll recognize it from Megillat Esther. It's the same basic mode. And so this is a recording of Bram Cardozo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר של חנוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם ובזמן הזה. On the first night, this blessing is added. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. So if you are familiar with the Spanish-Portuguese tradition, that's a standard kind of mode for blessings. You'll hear that Shechianu at Kiddush on the holidays and other times like that. Sung the same way. There's one little. It's so little I almost wasn't going to mention it, but my grandfather said it the way all the blessings are done with Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam Baruch atah Hashem. So it has a little bit of an introductory note. Bram Cardozo, for Hanukkah only, for whatever reason, I don't know why, said the beginning of the blessing straight. Baruch atah Hashem without the flourish. Whether that, and Rabbi Rode keeps that as its Torah Misinai. I don't know exactly why. I don't think it has any halachic significance whatsoever. But that is, you get the intricacies of the tradition and what I have to deal with when I do it and someone corrects me. Okay. All right, here we go. And now we get to Hanerot Halalu. We're going to listen to 2 versions of it. The first one is the way we sing it here in Shearith Israel in New York City. And then we're going to listen to the way that's sung in Amsterdam, which is a lot slower and with more flourish. And not quite the same, but you'll hear them. I didn't include the British version. It lies somewhere in between, but we'll hear the New York version first, and then the Dutch version second.
Hanerot Halalu anu matnikin ala nisim ve'ala porkan ve'ala gevurot ve'ala teshuvot ve'ala niflaot ve'ala nechamot shenasita לאבותינו בימים ההם ובזמן הזה על ידי כהניך הקדושים וכל שמונת ימי חנוכה הנרות הללו קודש הם ואין לנו רשות להשתמש בהם אלא לראותם בלבד כדי להודות לשמך על ניסיך ועל ישועותיך
So that's Bram Cardozo's version. That's the way, essentially the way I sung it in my family with my grandfather, pretty much exactly the same way. And we're going to listen to another version, a little bit more elaborate version from Chazan Duque, who was the Chazan in Amsterdam before World War II. He was murdered during the Holocaust. And that's a picture of him right here at the bottom of the screen. And after we listen to that, we're going to talk about the blessings and the Hanerot Halalu and the order of how we light and some little idiosyncrasies of the Spanish-Portuguese tradition compared to others. So here we go. So it's pretty long for a short text. It's about 3 minutes long. And I was told this recording comes from approximately 1938, that the rendition given here was done to fit the space on the side of the LP. Meaning that they had 3 minutes and they used it all. They weren't going to make a recording of 2 minutes and 50 seconds. They were going to use every bit of the space they were allotted, and that's why this is so extended. But I have listened to other recordings from Amsterdam of the Rabbi Pereira and later Chazanim, and they're all imitating this almost exactly. So even though I suspect that this was more elaborate than was usually done in before the 1930s, this has become the manner that it's sung in Amsterdam today. A few little minor liturgical things you may have noticed. The text here, which comes from David de Sola Poole's prayer book, has Ve'al hanisim, ve'al ha'porkan, ve'al ha'givurot, ve'al ha'teshuot. And the text that they were using in Amsterdam doesn't have a vav there until the last one in the list. I mean, it says al hanisim, al ha'porkan, al ha'givurot, al ha'teshuvot, and the last one ve'al ha'nechamot, sort of indicating that it's the end of the litany. Rabbi Dr. Poole does it the other way around. I am not sure which one is, or whether Dr. Poole changed it, or whether it reflects an earlier tradition. Don't know, but that was definitely something that I noticed. And then there's when you sing this. This is a old debate. I think nowadays, and if I'm wrong, if your customs in your house is different, please let me know in the chat. But today, when we do this, whether it's in synagogue or at home, we say the blessings, we light the candles, and we sing this while we're lighting the candles. Now, in some communities, they'll say the first blessing and start lighting the candles while they're saying the second blessing, Sha'asani Sim Lavotenu, so that they're lighting immediately after the blessing of the mitzvah. Asher Kedishanam Tav Tivanu, Lik Ner Shel Hanukkah, and they're lighting. That's done in many Sephardic communities, and not in Spanish Portuguese, where we say the blessings first and then we light afterward. Just as a interesting note, in the German community of Frankfurt, which I think is unlike other communities, or at least I don't think this is particularly common, they will say the first blessing, Asher Kedishanam Tav Tivanu, and the Chazan will wave the candle in front of the other lights as if he were lighting them, but not actually doing so, and then make the other blessings. It's sort of like a little nod that some people light the candles here. Anyway, that's a little aside. But one of the interesting that comes out of this is in the medieval Ashkenazic minhag books, some people had the minhag to sing Hanerot Halalu right after. They would say the first blessing, sing Hanerot Halalu while lighting the candles, then Shasanisim after Hanerot Halalu, which is just totally different than the way I've seen it. If you do it that way, I'd be very interested to hear anyone who does it that way. But that is the way some medieval minhag books have it. Okay. One more little note. I didn't go a lot of doing halachic, delving into the halachic sources, but there is a interesting custom in Amsterdam that is not done here in New York. And that is, I'll tell you what we do here, which I think is standard Ashkenazic and standard Sephardic practice in most communities. We light the candle, we say the blessings, we light the candle all the way on the right. That's the first day is all the way on the right. The second day, you add a new candle to the left of that position, and you light the new candle, and then you go to the right. In Amsterdam, they don't do that. They light the newest candle first, the same way we would, but then they skip over all the ones in the middle and go from the oldest one back to the newest one. They go from right to left. The first one that they light for the bracha is the new one, and then they go back and do the rest, which is unusual. So, but not done here in Shearith, Israel. But that is done in the Esnoga in Amsterdam. Okay, moving right along. Oops, here we go. Then in the Spanish-Portuguese tradition, at least when you're in synagogue, after Hanerot Halalu is done, we sing Mizmor Shir Chanukah Tabayit LeDavid. Now this is a psalm. It's a psalm. It's Psalm 30. The psalm does not have to do with Chanukah. It has this koteret, this title, Mizmor Shir Chanukah Tabayit LeDavid, the song that was sung for the dedication of the house of David, or the temple that David built. But scholars debate whether that is put in later. But who knows? I've seen arguments both ways, academic arguments, not just traditionalists, but both ways. But nevertheless, this is the psalm that we sing on Hanukkah. We say this psalm daily in the Psukei de Zimra, the Zemirot. In Shearith Israel, when we say this psalm on a regular weekday, we just start with Aro Mimcha, Adonai Ki Dilitani, and we finish off the psalm. Only on Hanukkah we add this koteret. Only on Hanukkah do we add the title, Mizmor Shir Chanukah Tabayit LeDavid. Okay, so at our beat, after we light the Chanukiah, we sing this to the following melody. If I can get it here. Oops. I have to find it. I know it's on the page, but like last time, sometimes they don't appear. Okay. Better. Now we're talking. Okay, so this is Mizmor Shir Chanukah Tabayit LeDavid. This is a regular psalmody mode that we sing at our beat on Chanukah after the Hanerot Halalu.
Mizmor Shir Chanukah Tabayit LeDavid. Lo imcha Adonai Ki Dilitani, v'lo simachta oyem b'li. Adonai Elohai, shivamti elecha v'tirpaeni. Adonai, engelita min shol nafshi. Chitani miyad libor. Zamor Adonai chasidam, ve'odu lezecher kodsho. Iregan be'apo chaim birtzono. Bangen avinim bechi ve'laboker ina. ואני אמרתי בשלמי ולמות לעולם. אדוני, ברצונך אמרת להר רימוז, הסתרת פניך הייתי נפעל. אליך אדוני אקרא, ואל אדוני אתחנן. מבט צנג בדמי, בריתי אל שחד, הידך עפר, אגיד עמיתך, שמע אדוני וכונני, אדוני עוזר לי. הפכת מספרי למחולי, פיתחת שקים, ותעזרני שמחה. למען גם ישמרך כבוד ולא ידום, אדוני אלוהי, לעולם עודך.
So that's the Psalm of Hanukkah, and if you were paying attention to it, it's nothing to do with Hanukkah. It's a pretty dark psalm about God saving you from the pit and the darkness and the Sheol, and if there's any theme, I don't know. I haven't seen it. Maybe it has to do with the long nights of the winter. But I don't know. I think the reason we say it on Hanukkah is merely because of the koteret, Mizmor Shir Chanukah Tabayit LeDavid. I don't think there's any thematic reason otherwise to do so. And you may have noticed that a few of the lines got a little bit more elaborate. Kiregang biapo chayim birtzono b'erev yalin bechi v'labokerina ma betzang bedami beriti el shachat hayodecha nafar yagil amitecha הפכת מספרי למחולי פיתחת שקי ותעזרני שמחה. And again, I'm not 100% sure why these phrases got that little flourish but they do. That's the tradition. And that it breaks the monotony of the A-B parts of the psalm otherwise. And that's the way we sing this psalm. We only say it at our beat on Hanukkah. Otherwise, it's said in the morning service and during Zemirot, and it's never chanted this way except for Hanukkah. So this is a Hanukkah melody, even though it's a regular psalm melody. Okay, now we're going to move on. If you have questions about the way we light the Chanukiah, you can put them in the chat, or you can wait till the end, or you can ask them in person. But we're going to move now on to the actual Chanukiyot of Shearith Israel. So this is the Chanukiah. If you've been to Shearith Israel, you probably have seen it. If you've come on Hanukkah, you've seen it. You may have seen it in a lot of publications. It gets a lot of press. A couple of years ago, it was used at the White House Hanukkah lighting party, which Rabbi Soloveitchik attended, and they used this Chanukiah. This is it's a beaten sheet of brass that is Dutch, and it's from the 18th century. It is not marked, so it's not like we know who made it. And it's not an uncommon design, and it's not a particularly special Chanukiah, but for the reason that we have been using it in our synagogue since 1730 or before. That's what makes it special. Not its design, not its age, but its continuous use by our congregation, and which we continue to do year after year. In fact, I don't know if it was last year, we used it outdoors. I made sure to bring it outdoors. I was a little nervous about it, but we made it work when we had services outdoors during COVID. But it's not the only Chanukiah we have here at Shearith Israel. In fact, we have another one here. It's almost identical, really almost identical. The design is so similar with these rosettes and these hearts and, I don't know, stems. They are very, if you didn't know what to look for, you could easily be confused. But this one on the right is the one we've been using since 1730. And this one on the left is one that we acquired, was donated to us by a congregant in 2012. So this one has a lot more value than that one, merely because we've been using it for so long. Now this Chanukiah is probably North African, the one on the left that was given to us. It's probably 19th century. Again, it doesn't have a maker's mark. We don't really know for sure. This one is 18th century. We know for sure because it's been in the congregational in use. And the one on the left is probably early 19th, maybe 18th century, probably North African. Also, though, Dutch origin, Dutch sheet brass. It's a style. They made them for export in Holland and were used throughout the world. And in fact, if you, this was the donor, this is Mrs. Petigliani, who gave it to us in 2012. This is Rabbi Hidri presenting us with the Chanukiah that we have that looks very similar to ours, but doesn't have the same provenance. But if you want to pick one up, you can do so in a few hours. And that's because there is a almost identical Chanukiah being sold at auction at Sotheby's tomorrow. And let's see if this will let us go see it. Can you see my screen right now? No. Okay. Let's see if we can do this better. How about now? Can you see my screen now? Okay. I can't see you, is what it is. Okay. So this, you can, if you so wish, put a bid in. There's 17 hours left. So I know you're going to go right on afterwards and put in a bid. The current bid is $1 US. Whoa. Might get a steal. Who knows? Oh, there's one bid, not $1 US. I think there's one bid. Anyway, maybe you can pick one up. We don't need another one at the synagogue, though. So if you pick it up for your use, not for Shearith Israel's. But as you see, this is a style of 18th century Dutch sheet brass, hammered brass, to make these hearts and rosettes and this style. Okay, let's stop the share. Are there letters, inscription around the heart? No, there are let's see if I can go back or there'll be another picture at the end. I'm going to try to zoom in for you. But there are no inscriptions, no markings. There is decorative markings, very small, little, fine decorative markings, but nothing that would indicate who made it or who owned it or who donated it at any time. Okay. Going back to our slideshow. Okay. So that's the old Dutch style Hanukkah that we've been using since about the year 1730, if not older. And now we have another one. And I'm curious to know how many of you have seen it used. It is used from time to time. This is a very large Hanukkah that's probably made around 1900. Either in America or Polish. It's Polish design, but it might be made in America. It's very, very large. Well, there are larger, but it's compared to the other one, it's very, very. It far towers over the Mill Street Synagogue one, and we don't use it during services, but we do use it for events. So we have lit it in the Levy Auditorium when we had an event over Hanukkah. We have lit it for the children of the Polonese Talmud Torah School, or as you see during the pandemic, we had an event with the children where we lit this Hanukkah as well. So it does get used, although not during the service. It's not our ritual one, but it does get used, and it's a nice large Hanukkah. The Star of David and an eagle. Okay, it's not the only Hanukkah we have. So we've seen so far, if you're keeping track, an old 18th century Dutch Hanukkah that we have been using in the congregation since the Mill Street Synagogue, then a almost identical type that we received as a gift in 2012, and this one, which is early 20th century, that we use from time to time for display purposes or events. And there's one more, and that's this one on the top left. I don't know the acquisition history for it. I don't know when we received it. It was sitting in our safe. I don't know how old it is for the congregation. I know Sotheby's looked at it and told me that it's probably late 19th century North African. But when it came to Shearith Israel, I don't know. But it's a good example of Sephardic Chanukiot. It has a couple of features that make it interesting. One is that it's hanging. One of the major differences between Ashkenazic Chanukiot and Sephardic Chanukiot, the Sephardic Chanukiot are made to hang on the wall, whereas Ashkenazic Chanukiot are usually on some kind of platform or made to be put outside your doorway or inside near your window, but they usually are freestanding, whereas Chanukiot from the Sephardic world are meant to be hung on the wall. And you can see that pretty easily in almost all the examples that we have, because they have rings or hooks to hang them from. The other thing that's interesting is this window design here. You can see it in the middle here. This is a very typical Sephardic design, and I don't know the exact origin of it, but the oldest example of it is one of the oldest Chanukiot that we know of, which is this 14th century Chanukiah from Spain. And you'll see on it, it has this like, I don't know, flowery rosette, almost looks like a stained glass window here in the center. And it has these little holes that look like windows here. And this design is not abstract at all. It is, in fact, architectural features of Moorish Spain, and that are pretty famous from the synagogue in Toledo. So if you look on the bottom of the screen, this is the synagogue in Toledo. And now it's a mosque. I think it's called, it escapes me the name of it, Transito or something like that. And you can see the design elements. These are in the windows, these are in the arches, and these are reflected in the Chanukiot of Spain from that medieval period, the same architectural kind of design. And this becomes a model for a Sephardic Chanukiot. So here's an Algerian one from the 19th century, and this is the one that Shearith Israel has, 19th century North African, very typical. So if you see a Chanukiah which has these windows, these, this kind of design, it's Sephardic probably North African. Exactly when, I need to consult an expert over, but that's a design style. And now, just to compare what I said earlier, Ashkenazic style Chanukiot are usually large and freestanding. And here on the left is an image from Italian medieval manuscript, Hebrew illuminated manuscript. I think it's the Rothschild Miscellany or something like that, where you see the Chazan or the rabbi, whoever is lighting this very large Chanukiah with the big taper. And that's actually what's done in traditional Ashkenazic synagogues to this day. This is a picture from the German community in Washington Heights, so that you can get other pictures of big Ashkenazic synagogues where they'll have a big candle lighting ceremony where they will have the Chanukiah standing up in the front of the synagogue and lit right there by the Chazan. The Sephardic custom, however, is a little different. It's to hang it on the wall, usually on the south wall or the right-hand wall of the synagogue. And here are some examples from the Spanish-Portuguese tradition. This one is the oldest one. This is a Chanukiah that was donated to the synagogue in Amsterdam in 1629, which is really pretty ancient. Still used to this day. Has a hook for hanging, although now I notice they put it in a box. They don't hang the Chanukiah directly on the wall. They put it in a box first. And then here's another one a little bit later, Curacao, 1716. Really intricate, beautiful silver design with a name of a donor here on the top. And interestingly, the oil lamps in this Curacao one are not straight. They're not in a straight line like we're used to seeing frequently, but they're in a semicircle around. You can sort of see that here. And that's what's used in Curacao to this day as well. So our brass Chanukiah is a similar age to this one, a little later than this one. Comes from Amsterdam. It's meant to be hung on the wall, not as intricate as this Curacao one. And that is the style, that's the Chanukiot that we use. And here's the Shearith Israel one that you can see. And here's a little more detail. I think Roger was looking for, the little inlays. They're just like little taps with the awl or whatever the right tool is, little tooling in there. Quite nice, but again, no indication of who gave it or when, or no maker's mark or anything like that. And that is my presentation for you today. You can stop the share. And let's see what we have in the chat. Is there no fear of fire being so close to the wall? So that is what perfect segue to the end of my talk, which is here in Shearith, Israel, when I was growing up, we would light it on the wall. There was a special box which had a very, very heavy, it was a wooden box that had a metal lining in the inside that the Chanukiah sat in, and that whole box hung on the wall. Then in, I forget exactly what year, I'm going to say 2005, but I'm not sure exactly. The synagogue was rehabilitated, and there was a lot of work done in the synagogue, and painting was done, and all sorts of work was done in the main synagogue and the small synagogue. And it was determined for two reasons not to light it on the wall anymore. One was the smoke from the wicks would put dirt on the freshly painted wall. They didn't want that to happen. And the second, maybe more important, is the fire hazard. If you just let it sitting up there, it will become a fire hazard if it's not put out right away. And why light it if you're going to put it out right away? So so that is so we took it off the wall. We put it on a table towards the front of the synagogue. It is not the traditional way that we used to do it. As Annette says, many people remember hanging it on the wall. Maybe I can convince people that we'll do it again one day, but we'll have to develop some fireproofing boxes to put there. Yeah, exactly, Roger. And that's my presentation. I'm gonna stop the recording. Where is that? Here. Did I never start the recording? Oh well. Oh, I did.